There are some components to the computer you use that people use the terms and sometimes others don't know what they are. So we want to go through what some of these terms mean. If somebody asks you about my computer, they're specifically referring to this icon right here. This icon will bring up all the drives on your computer that you have access to. Your C drive is your local drive, and then you'll have other drives in here and then network drives listed here at the bottom. There are other ways to get to the computer. One of them would be by going through the Start menu and clicking on Computer right there. Speaking of Start menu, this button down here in the bottom left-hand corner used to say Start, and you'll notice if I hover over it, it still says Start, but they've replaced it with the Windows icon. If somebody asks you to click on the Start button, they're referring to that button right there. Right next to the Start button then is your taskbar, and this taskbar holds open programs and also programs that you have pinned to the taskbar. One way to pin an item to the taskbar is to find the program that you want. So in this case we'll use Windows DVD Maker, and right click on it and just pin to taskbar. And after I do that, you'll notice that it appears down here at the bottom of the screen. When I no longer want that, I can right click on it again and say unpin this program from the taskbar. You'll also notice that you have the recycle bin up there. When you want to throw things away or get rid of them off your computer, you can dump them in there, and then when you don't want them ever again, you can go ahead and empty the recycle bin. Some of the other things in your start bar, on the left-hand side are all the programs, and they're put in a list of programs you use most frequently. On the right then, on the right are other items: control panel, devices and printers, computer, and then your My Documents, where documents are stored. If you want all programs, that's down here towards the bottom, and it'll bring up a list of all the programs on your computer. But I have found the easiest way to get to programs is to use this search bar down here in the bottom and just type in the program you're looking for. I typed in Word, and you'll notice that it shows two programs that have Word in it. It shows Control Panel that might have something, and then it shows programs that you have used that have information about Word right there. So those are some easy ways to get around your machine and some tips for finding information.
One of the big questions we get is how to adjust your power settings and what your computer does when you leave it for a while or when you shut the lid. The easiest way to handle this is to go into Control Panel, and inside Control Panel there's something called Power Options. One thing I'm going to point out while we're in here is I don't like the look of this, and by default this is what it comes standard with Windows 7. I always change this to small icons where everything's kind of laid out in alphabetical order. From here then, if you click Power Options, you'll notice that currently we are at a balanced approach. Now I can go in and change these plan settings and I get something that looks like this. And I have two options here. I've got on battery, which means the computer's not plugged in, or my plugged in options, and how often do I dim the display, or when do I turn off the display, or when do I put the computer to sleep. These can all be adjusted for time, but what I have found has been the biggest thing that users want to know are some of these in-depth things, some of this in-depth information. For more advanced users, you can go through all of these as well. The other thing I would recommend is choose what to do when the computer lid is closed, choosing what closing the lid does. These are all set to sleep. You can also do nothing and the computer keeps running. You can hibernate or you can shut down, and it can be different if you're plugged in versus on battery. It's really hard for us to know what people want when it comes to power settings, and so we use a default. Users need to just play with these a little bit and see what works best for them. All teacher laptops come loaded with wireless, and the wireless should be connected to our district wireless. The easiest way to view this is down here in the bottom right-hand corner next to the clock and the speaker and the battery information is also these bars which indicate wireless. You'll notice that I am currently connected to PAPLV, and I do have internet access. If for any reason I become unconnected, I can click on this list and I can connect to any wireless system on this list. By default, it is pulling all wireless in this area. Once I'm connected, I can also manage that by right-clicking and doing an Open Network and Sharing Center. And when you do this, you're presented with some information about your network. What I want everybody to notice is that over here, there's the option to manage wireless networks. This top box right here, you're not going to do anything with. But this bottom box here, networks you can view, modify, and reorder, is probably going to be pretty long for a number of you. And the reason is, every time you connect to a wireless network, it gets saved in this location. They also get saved in the order that you most recently connected to them. So if you are at a hotel and you connect to their wireless system there, it is going to be ahead of PAPLV. So it's constantly going to try to find the hotel before it connects to PAPLV. It will sort through that list in the order that you last connected to them. One way to speed this process up is to reorder these by just dragging and dropping to the networks you use most regularly. I run mine personally so that I've got the school network here and then my home network second in the list, and then I keep everything else below it.
The most important probably is our Windows updates. We push those out monthly, and these consist of important and critical updates, things that your computer really needs or has to have. We turn those updates off in times where we don't have a lot of people here, so summer months updates are turned off. Then we've also been asked to turn them off during NISA testing windows. So most of March they're off, April they're off. And so we really get behind during those times. Then when we go to catch up, what happens is your computer wants to reboot multiple times. And we get that that can definitely be frustrating, that your computer wants to reboot right in the middle of doing something, right in the middle of teaching, right in the middle of a meeting or whatever you're doing. So I want to give you some tips here on how to avoid those inconvenient times of rebooting. When we start pushing those out, you'll get an email, or your buildings will get an email from Stephanie Morrow, and Stephanie will talk about pushing out updates, and then she'll give like a close to the window. When that window closes, you're no longer allowed to postpone the updates. It's going to force a reboot no matter what you do at that point. So it's important to kind of be proactive during that window and make sure that the reboot happens. And when I say postpone, this is something that you'll see. So something will pop up in your bottom right-hand corner that'll look a little bit like this, and it'll ask you if you want to restart now or postpone. During the window, that postpone button is there. Our recommendation then is that after school or before you go to lunch, you do that reboot manually. So the best way to do this, if you go down to your start button, you'll see a shutdown button right there on your right, everybody kind of notices that shield with the exclamation point in it. That shield signifies that there are updates. So if you click that, it's going to install the updates. It's going to go through that process and shut down, and then you're going to reboot. There is also a manual way to do some of this. And I do take a proactive approach to this with my computer in the office. And to do that, I just go down to the Start button in that white search bar. So if I go back a slide here, you'll notice this search. It says Search Programs and Files. So that's our search bar I'm referring to there. If you just type in Windows Update, it's going to bring up the Windows Update service for you in a screen, and it's going to look a little bit like this. So I took this picture from my computer yesterday, and you'll notice that it says Windows is up to date. So that's a good sign. Now you could see things in here that there are updates ready for your computer that are ready to be installed. You can absolutely go ahead and install those from this screen, and if you do that, then you won't have you'll have proactively done it, and you won't be waiting for it to happen from our end. So that is the other option if you want to go through and do this piece manually. I don't think anybody needs to do this. We can push those out just like we've always done. I think to avoid frustration, though, it's just a matter of staying on top of those reboots. And if you get that message and you postpone updates, just to remember to go back and take care of the updates at a later time. This screen here shows our Sophos Endpoint Security and Control Center, which is loaded on every computer. There are two ways to get to this control center. The first is by going to your Start menu, All Programs, and then finding Sophos. It's also running in the taskbar down at the bottom if you'd like to select it from there by right-clicking and opening. Once you do get it open, you'll be presented with this screen. If you do have anything that's been quarantined, anything that seems suspicious, it will be listed in this box right here. If you see it and it is not a suspicious file, or it's a file that you know about, you can select it from here and release it. You can also clear it from the list or clean the virus, which would be an option right here. If you don't feel comfortable with this, this is exactly the reason our help desk technicians are around. And through a help desk ticket, we would be more than happy to come out and help with this part. One thing that we do recommend, though, for ongoing maintenance is to maybe run a scan of your machine once a month. To do that, you come up here to File and do a new scan, and then you can select what you want to scan. So we'll select the C drive here, and we'll do a Save and Start. And you can name that scan Monthly Scan, and you can save and start. Once it starts, this screen will be presented, and it will go through and it'll scan your entire computer. It's probably not something you want to do in the middle of the day, but is good maintenance to maybe do overnight or early in the morning, because it does take a couple hours to finish. Once it's done, if you do have any issues, you'll be presented with this screen that will list all of those out. And at that point, the help desk would be happy to help you deal with any issues you might have with viruses on your machine.
This year we've heard a lot about network loops, but one of the questions that we've had is what exactly is a network loop? Many of you have a box that looks like this in your classroom. And what this box does is if we have one network drop that connects into the network, this box allows you to have multiple connections coming off of that one jack. It's called a network switch. Network loops are created when you have one end plugged into the network switch The other end's supposed to go into a computer or a printer. And what happens is this accidentally gets plugged in to the same switch on a different port. And it creates a loop and it causes so much traffic that you can take down the whole network with that.
Another common way people get viruses and malware on their computer is through downloading software off the internet. I'm going to go ahead and do a search here for Acrobat Reader. And you'll notice that I get a lot of different results. A few of these results, in fact right now, the first ones take me to adobe.com. But as you go down here, you'll notice that this one takes you actually to softonic.com. This one takes you to FileHippo. This one takes you to download.cnet.com. We have no way of knowing if these are good websites or bad websites or anything else. So our recommendation is always to download either through the manufacturer's website or through a place called ninite.com, which I'll go into more information on here in a second. For right now, we are going to use the actual website from the company, and I'll just click on one of these links, and then as I get in here, I'm presented with their information. And I can just go ahead and say download now, and I will start this process. Now here is one of the other places that people make some mistakes. You'll notice that Acrobat comes up and we're on step 1 of 3. By default, it's saying, do you want to install the McAfee Security Scan Plus Utility Check? Well, I don't want to do that. That's an add-on that they get paid for if you leave it checked. This is also how a lot of toolbars get installed on computers, is you're downloading software that is not a problem at all, but by default it comes with a toolbar check. So at this point I have unchecked that, and I can start walking through the process of setting this up. The other way to do this, which I am a big fan of, is a site called Ninite, ninite.com. And what this does is it brings up this website. And the people who run this website, and it's completely free, have done it in such a way that all of these come from good sources, and they have taken out all of the extra software with them. So in this case, if I choose that I want Reader, I just select Reader and I say Get Installer, and it's going to install the latest version of Reader on my computer. The other nice thing about this is if you have multiple things that you want to install. So I want to do Reader, but I also want to get Chrome and let's see, I want to get AVG antivirus, or let's do Malwarebytes. I can say Get Installer, and then all 3 will install at the same time, pre-packaged without any of that extra stuff. We have found that this is probably the best way to get software packages on your computer. Now you'll notice that not everything is here, so some things you'll have to go back to the manufacturer's website. But for things on this page, we really like ninite.com. One of the large problems we have in the district is users who get malware or viruses on their computer. One of the ways these come in is through email. You'll notice on the email here at the very top that it looks like it's coming from myself, which a lot of times makes people think that they should open it or look at it. Typically that is not a good sign if it comes from yourself. But opening the email is typically will not cause any problems. I can open this email without any issue. There are some things in this email though that makes it a problem. The first thing I want you to notice is the attachment that's sitting here. Everything after the period, so it's radius.zip.doc. The icon makes it look like it's a Word document. Everything after the first period actually indicates the type of document it is. So this here is a zip file. If I download this to my computer and execute it, it could have a virus attached to it. We typically block ZIP files. The way that people are getting around this is by adding an extension at the end, a secondary extension. So that .doc changes the file type here, makes it look different, even though it is a .zip still. So that's one of the main things you can look for in an email. The other thing you can look for in an email is a link. So you'll notice here it says, if you can't view the extension, click on this link. Well, if I hover over this link, it will show me where the link's going. So in this case, the link says 205.202.235.254. Well, I don't know where that location is, so I probably don't want to click on that link. There are other times where you'll get an email that says, go to Adobe and download software. And it'll have a link that says adobe.com. But if you hover over the link, it doesn't take you to adobe.com, it takes you to another site. Anytime I click over a link and I see it going to a site that I'm not expecting, I assume that that is a malware or a virus site, and I do not click on the link.